I don't think too many of us are surprised by the news today that the Dallas Cowboys have decided to part ways with Dez Bryant after 8 seasons playing for the star. Some Cowboys fans might not have wanted to accept the reality. Some might have believed that, hey, maybe they will keep him around for one more year. Maybe they'll be able to restructure. Maybe they'll extend him to kind of dissipate some of that cap figure over a period of the next couple of years. But I think most of us logically understood that if something didn't happen in that standpoint, which there was no reason to believe that it would, that the Dallas Cowboys, whether it be before the draft or sometime after the draft, maybe after June 1st, were going to cut Dez Bryant. And the very simple reason why they cut him was he's not the same receiver that he once was. When you look at the first 5 seasons of his career, from 2010 to 2014, when Tony Romo was the starter, he had 1,000 yards receiving between 2012 and 2013 and 2014. In each of those years, he went over 1,000 yards. I think even 2011, he was just a little bit south of 1,000 yards. And between 2011 and 2014, he had seasons with 9 touchdown catches, 12 touchdown catches, 13 touchdown catches. 2014 was a monster year for him with 16 touchdown catches. And you're looking at him, he's a big star. He's playing for the star. He's playing for Jerry Jones. And I always found it cool in a sense that, Dez Bryant was drafted in large part. If you remember in that 2010 draft, there were concerns about off-the-field issues and different things. And it was kind of Jerry Jones's chance to right a previous wrong. He didn't draft Randy Moss in 1998 when he wanted to, and he really knows damn good and well he should have. And he came to regret that decision for years. He regretted it all the way in that Thanksgiving game of Moss's rookie year in 98, the 3 touchdowns, each over 50 yards. Randy Moss made Thanksgiving his personal holiday on the Cowboys' asses on that Thanksgiving day in 98. But Dez Bryant was a chance to learn from the past, which is important for all of us. We make mistakes. How do we learn from them? How do we make sure we don't repeat those same mistakes again? So, for Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys, they learned from that previous mistake they made by not taking Randy Moss, by making sure that they ultimately moved into a position to be able to draft Dez Bryant. And over the first 5 years of his career, he was living up to the billing. He was a star. He was a borderline superstar. He was a top-flight NFL wide receiver. And you talk about after that 2014 season where the Cowboys won a bunch of games, they make it to the divisional round of the playoffs, they go into Lambeau, they face the Packers, and then the catch-no-catch happens with Dez Bryant. And the simple truth of the matter is, I know it seems silly to think that way and seems borderline ridiculous, because it is, because there's a myriad of other factors at play. But it feels like Dez Bryant has never been the same. That play that should have been a catch wasn't a catch because of the rules that now would be a catch. Dez Bryant has never been the same. And frankly, when you look at the last 3 seasons, it's true. Over the last 3 years, he's only played in 38 games, 0 seasons with 1,000 yards receiving. And then from the touchdown standpoint, 3 touchdowns in 2015, 8 touchdowns in 2016, 6 touchdowns receiving in 2017. You could say 2015 was a lost season because of no Tony Romo. But you have Dez Bryant misses like 7 games that year. 2016, Dak's a rookie. But Dez Bryant still misses a few games, doesn't go over 1,000 yards, only has 8 touchdown catches. And then 2017, you could see what looked to be a player that was in a decline, and not just some type of a decline, but a somewhat steep decline compared to the first 5 years of his career. And it's almost one of these cautionary tales of, just because a guy has produced and been a big star for you through the first beginning portion of his career doesn't necessarily mean that that's always going to carry over. Because the Cowboys, after that 2014 season, they paid him. They gave him a ton of money. They gave him $45 million guaranteed. And we've now reached the end of that guaranteed money. And it looks like the Cowboys massively overpaid. At that time, they had no choice. At that time, it was 100% the right decision. But it is the nature of the beast. Sometimes these things just don't work out. And now you're talking about a Cowboys team that signed Allen Hurns in free agency after he was released by the Jaguars. You're talking about a team that owns the 19th pick in round 1 of this year's NFL draft, which might be right in the sweet spot to be able to get a receiver, whether it's Cortland Sutton or whether it's Calvin Ridley, what have you. And then you look at the Cowboys, who were in a perpetual state of poor salary cap management, which is one of the hallmarks, really, of Jerry Jones' ownership over the past 2 decades for that team. Dez Bryant was carrying a massive cap figure, like $16 million or so. So are you going to pay that much for a guy who very likely, again, is not going to reach 1,000 yards receiving, is not going to reach double-digit touchdowns, especially at a point in time when the team has changed, the offense has changed. This is no longer an offense that is primarily built around Tony Romo and slinging the ball around all over the place. This is an offense based off of the offensive line, a quarterback that doesn't make a ton of bad decisions, and a running game with Ezekiel Elliott that dominates. Is it really wise to invest $16 million plus into damn Dez Bryant when he's no longer playing like the number 1 wide receiver he once was and would never play like a number 1 wide receiver in Dallas ever again? The priorities, the offense, everything had changed. The environment had changed. So the Cowboys had to do this. They had to get rid of Dez Bryant. They save about $8.5 million off the salary cap. It's like one of these things that's so obvious to do it. You can take that money and reinvest it in other places in the roster, and the Cowboys need to do that. You cannot continue to pay superstar money for a guy who is no longer a superstar and looks like he's not even going to be a star anymore, especially in Dallas. So from a Cowboy standpoint, I know there are going to be Cowboy fans that are upset about this and outraged about this. And look, Dez was a star for that team for several years. Yes, he would occasionally act a fool, let's be honest, and be kind of difficult to be with and deal with. But he did big things. I mean, he was a superstar at one point in time. But that time has passed for the past several years now. You cannot tell me by watching him in 2017 or even 2016 that this was a guy that necessitated paying over $16 million to. That's just emotional, delusional garbage. And look, it's the nature of the beast in sports. It's especially the nature of the beast in the NFL. There comes a point in time where the returns do not justify the cost. And the Cowboys had since reached that point with Dez Bryant. This move had to be made. From a business standpoint, this was absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the correct move to make. You get Dez Bryant and kind of his mercurial attitude out of the locker room, and you save several $1 million off of the salary cap. And potentially be able to replace him with younger options that could be a better fit for what you're looking to do long term. So I can understand Cowboys fans being emotional here, because this guy was a star for you for several years. I mean, this entire decade it's been Dez Bryant in a Cowboys uniform. Believe me, seeing people like Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs just effectively be run out of town by an incompetent general manager is incredibly frustrating. It still sticks in my craw a little bit to this day. And the difference for them was it wasn't so prohibitive from a salary cap standpoint to where you couldn't have had them back. They just chose to move on from those guys because they were stupid. This was an example more so of, yes, a guy that's done great things and has been a star, but that was several years back. Now it is coasting on name and reputation, and the guy is in decline. He's lost some of his explosiveness, a bit of his explosiveness, and he's never been a guy that's really prioritized route running or ever been a great route runner. So you can't pay him that type of money anymore. And now it comes down to, will Dez Bryant care enough to dedicate himself enough to remaking himself as an NFL wide receiver? Because I look at it this way. For those that are thinking he was still a superstar, you're crazy. That is name and years back of past history only that makes you think that. And being emotionally invested in the Cowboys. Get over yourselves. Not the truth. Also, for those that are saying he is flat out done, the dude still almost had 1,000 yards receiving in 2017. He's not completely and totally done. He's not the player he once was, but he is still young enough at 29, going to be 30 this year, where he could choose, if he so desires, and this is a big ask, a big if, but he can choose to work on some of the finer points of being a wide receiver and have a nice second stage of his career. He could still have 3, 4, 5, somewhat to pretty productive seasons in the NFL somewhere else. Just because he wasn't the same player doesn't automatically mean he's done. He can still contribute. He can still be a guy. He might not be that superstar ever again. He might not be that dude, but he can still be a dude, and especially on a good team. Now, where does he go? Does he want to get revenge on him by playing him twice a year and go to the Eagles or the Redskins? Are my Bears interested? Are the Jaguars interested after losing Robinson and Hearns in the free agency? Who else could there be? You could look at a team like the 49ers. Maybe you take a gamble on him to bring him in with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, there are plenty of potential options out there. Teams are going to be concerned a little bit about Dez Bryant's personality and his declining production. But it doesn't have to be the end for him. This can be a new beginning. But it was time to close that chapter after 8 years of him with the Dallas Cowboys. And it was best, frankly, for all parties to move on.